Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another Southern Oregon weather weekend update. Happy Father's Day to all of you dads who are listening. I want to start by reviewing the water year. So our precipitation as a percent of normal since October 1st. Yes, it's been wet during the first half of this month, but I want to put those rains into context. We'll talk about our 7-day forecast and then see what our teleconnections are telling us for the extended period. So first, here is our percent of normal precipitation since October 1st. That's the start of the water year. So you can see the northern half of Jackson County has been roughly 70 to 90% of normal as far as precipitation goes. Southern half has been a little bit drier, but this illustrates that even though it's been quite wet during the first half of the month and that we've seen a fairly wet spring, we're still down. We're still below normal for rainfall, so it's still quite dry. This early June rainfall has definitely helped improve our soil moisture a little bit, but it's still dry. So I just wanted to put those rains into context. So what I want to do is discuss why the Weather Channel is forecasting our first risk for triple-digit heat on Monday and Tuesday, and why the forecast then cools off for the remainder of the week. So Weather Channel is saying that on Monday and more likely on Tuesday that we'll see our first threat of triple-digit temperatures. But then by Wednesday and Thursday, we get back down into the high 80s and low 90s. So why is this going to be the case? Well, here's our current 500 millibar look from the European Ensemble. This was an analysis, so this isn't a forecast. This is what we looked like early this morning. You can see a ridge starting to build right off the coast. And what's going to happen is this ridge is going to build and shift inland. And so here, by early Tuesday morning, 48 hours from now, Monday night, you can see this ridge is now parked over our area. And this is a classic situation for summer heat. But then you can see it starts to shift offshore. So interestingly, it moves inland and then it retrogrades again, back out toward the Gulf of Alaska. And that's going to allow us to come under this cooler northwest flow and knock our temperatures back down to the low 90s. And you can see eventually this ridge moves far enough offshore that it allows a trough to dig in, and that's going to cool our temperatures down even more heading into the weekend. So, a couple reasons why our 500 millibar scenario is going to evolve like this. The first is this huge SOI drop that I talked about last week that we saw in the early part of the month. Now, I mentioned last week that the Southern Oscillation Index does have a strong influence on our weather here, but there's a lag. So there's about a 16, 17, 18-day lag between what the SOI is doing and what type of weather we're experiencing here on the West Coast. So we had a huge drop in the SOI about 15 days ago, and that's a signal for heat along the West Coast during the summer. And so this lines up very nicely with the heat that we're going to be experiencing in just a few days. So it's easy to see the connection there between the SOI drop and our first triple-digit temperatures. You can see since then it's kind of moderated. We've even seen some positive anomalies, which is a cool signal for our area during the summer. And that could also help to explain why we're going to be cooling down after those 2 days of hot temperatures. You can see also recently we've seen another drop, not quite as significant as the one we saw about 2 weeks ago. But this could point toward maybe some heat briefly returning the end of the first week of June. We'll talk about that toward the end of the forecast. Now, another reason why we're going to warm up during the first part of this week is the PNA. You can see it's positive at this time of the year. That's a signal for warmth over southwest Oregon. Once again, though, we see that this is kind of transient and that toward the end of the week we see this falling off and getting pretty deeply into negative territory toward the end of the month. So that is also going to explain why we'll see only a few days of heat, and then we'll see cooler conditions for the rest of the week into the weekend. Finally, I want to show you the atmospheric angular momentum and the MJO. So the AAM, basically a measure of global wind speeds. Negative anomalies lead to kind of a wavy or jet stream pattern, and that's a cooler signal for our area during the summer. And this is also going to explain why we're going to see 2 days of pretty hot temperatures and then a return to cooler conditions, because the base state of the atmosphere here, this negative angular momentum, is not going to favor extended periods of heat. And we talked last week about the CFS-V2's continued attempts to take the angular momentum higher, but over the last several days as I've been watching this, each member of the ensemble here has just been trending lower and lower. So there are indications that this negative angular momentum state could continue into July, and that's also a cooler signal. I also said I was going to show you the MJO, areas of thunderstorms moving across the Pacific Ocean, across the Indian Ocean and into the Pacific. The MJO has been pretty much parked in phases 1, 2, and 3 over the last couple of weeks, and that's going to continue. And that's also a cooler signal for our area. So again, another indication that yes, it's going to warm up, but that warmth isn't going to last for very long. We're going to revert back to average or slightly cooler than average conditions. And you can see here on the EPS, even by day 10, there is still a trough influencing our area as the calendar turns to July. So we did talk a couple minutes ago about our recent SOI drop. Once again, not as big as the SOI drop 2.5 weeks ago, but this could mean we do see another similar situation where we'll maybe see 1 or 2 days of triple-digit temperatures into week 3. So maybe the end of the week, first week of June, July, maybe July 6th through 8th could be warmer. But then we already see the SOI coming back up. And so, once again, it could be a similar scenario to this week where we see a few hot days, July 6th, 7th, and 8th, possibly, and then we cool back down again. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Here's a quick recap. We are going to see our first real threat of triple-digit temperatures Monday and especially Tuesday. That's because of that huge SOI drop. And our PNA is positive. But that's going to change because the base state of the atmosphere does not favor extended heat waves. Our PNA is going to fall. We do have that negative angular momentum. And our MJO is pretty much parked in phases 1 and 2. Those are all cool signals. We did discuss our recent SOI drop, and that could signal yet another warm period in about 18 days. Remember, there's a lag there, so July 6th, maybe 7th. However, I think even that brief warm period is not going to last for very long, because we do have this base state of the atmosphere that favors cool to normal temperatures over our part of the country during this time of year. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to set your notifications for that next weekend update, and please leave a like and comment about what you'd like to see in the forecast.